Well, another act of Islamic terrorism occurred on Canadian soil the other day. It took place at an armed forces recruitment office in Toronto. The accused knifeman is Ayanli Hassan Ali, and he tried to make a political point by, well, stabbing a couple of Canadian military personnel. Luckily, both stabbing victims will make a full recovery. Now, as Ezra Levant has already documented, there was an overwhelming reluctance by both the police and several members of the media to use the I word and the T word, even though the assailant yelled something about Allah in the process of carrying out this heinous act. The police and most of the press, they really hate using that combination of the I word and the T word in the same sentence. After all, Islam and terrorism make for a no-fly zone, even though terrorism in the name of Islam is the most prevalent security concern in the world today. And here's how bad the self-censorship is, folks. When I read the front page news story about the stabbing in the Toronto Star the day after the incident, well, the I word was never used, even at the end of the story when the reporter documented previous acts of terrorism on Canadian soil, namely the murders of Patrice Vincent and Nathan Cirillo. The I word, still AWOL. Now, we all know that these terrorist acts in 2014 were carried out by Islamists. Yet, if you're reading about these murders for the first time in the Star, hey, these incidents could have been carried out by Scientologists or space aliens, who knows? Okay, so maybe the Star is taking the position of, what's religion got to do with it when it comes to its stories? Maybe the Star would rather not focus on the religion of the individual as opposed to the individual himself. Okay, fair enough. But explain this glaring double standard. On the very same day that the Toronto Star went out of its way to avoid the term Islam in regard to the double attempted murder, the paper had absolutely no such reservations in proudly screaming Islam when it came to a glowing profile of an athlete in the sports section. The article I reference is about a female fencer on the U.S. Olympic team. And even though it was in the sports section as opposed to the op-ed pages, the article was completely politicized, starting with the headline, U.S. Olympian who wears the hijab offers riposte to Trump. What? This rhetoric was followed by the subhead that read, Ibtihaj Muhammad, heading to the Rio Games, says ignorant presidential candidate is hurting her security at home. Of course, for those paying attention to detail, there's not a single example of Muhammad's security being affected at home in the glowing 700-word article that follows. By the way, the news peg for the article isn't that Muhammad has actually won anything of significance lately, but rather that Muhammad will be the first U.S. Olympian to wear the hijab at the Olympics. And make no mistake, folks, in the Star's eyes, this sort of reasonable accommodation is a very, very good thing indeed. But even though this article is in the sports section, it is far less about the sport of fencing and is far more consumed with the progressive national pastime of taking potshots at Donald Trump, while, of course, denouncing Islamophobia. Again, this is in the sports pages, folks. So to recap, in the Toronto Star's world, if a Muslim is involved in a crime, even a crime that's committed in the name of Islam, mum's the word. But if a Muslim is on her way to the Olympics and she's wearing the hijab, well, you better believe the Islam card will be played to full effect. I mean, talk about jumping the Sharknado when it comes to pandering. Bottom line, folks, forget about the old New York Times slogan of all the news that's fit to print. The Toronto Star is just one example of a progressive left-wing media outlet that embraces the mantra of, if it's good, it's Islamic, and if it's Islamic, it's good. Oh, as for that nut bar brandishing a knife and screaming Allahu Akbar.
Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.